I guess I should start with who the heck I am. My name is Ben Porter. I've had over 10 years of experience within the RevOps world as an entrepreneur, a consultant, a CRO, and department leader. I've had the amazing opportunity to work alongside of numerous companies all across the globe, normally going through some type of investment round, anywhere from angel to post-Series D. I currently work for a Canadian company called AlayaCare, a Canadian health tech company, hopefully helping them push to IPO within the next couple of years. Now, for those that do know me, most of them would know me as the guy that makes a lot of mistakes. And I thought today I'm gonna share a lot of those mistakes with you all. So let's start talking about how we can achieve alignment across RevOps, enablement, and the overall organization. So it's no secret, I think most of us would agree, 2020 sucked. For really the first time in history, the entire world stopped. It was a scary time for hundreds of reasons. However, from a business perspective, whether we liked it or not, we were forced to restructure how we operated, both internally and externally, overnight. And since then, our business priorities have just been continuously shifting. For example, technology. Technology has become an absolute necessity, both from a team alignment, but also lead and client management perspective. The utilization of CRMs, revenue intelligence platforms, we talked about Gong, learning management systems, project management softwares have all gone from nice to haves to must haves within a company's tech stack. The need to hire, onboard, and retain employees as quickly and as efficiently as possible has become paramount. The job market over the last couple of years was absolutely insane. Honestly, our onboarding process basically became like an assembly line. And if we didn't have an LMS in place, I could only imagine the exhaustion our managers would have gone through doing the same trainings again and again and again. Now, not only were we hiring and onboarding at a rapid rate, we were doing so remotely. Working from home has also become the new normal, and honestly, that doesn't look to be changing anytime soon. In fact, according to EY, 80% of individuals have reported that they want to continue to work from home at least twice a week. And finally, the work-life balance has dramatically shifted over the last couple of years. According to LinkedIn, 63% of job seekers right now indicated that work-life balance was their top priority when looking for a new employer. Meaning people are looking to work less. And it became Enablement's responsibility to introduce new forms of automation and streamline current processes to ensure, although people are working less, we can't lose all overall productivity. I forgot to mention that also, while all of these things are going on, our buyer's journey was also completely changing. Most of us experienced a complete digitalization of the customer journey. Needless to say, I think all of us have been pretty busy the last couple of years. Now, one of the positives that has come out of this whirlwind we have experienced the last couple of years is the importance of RevOps, enablement, and overall company alignment has never been more important than it is today. In fact, according to Dun & Bradstreet, they asked 600 revenue leaders, what was your top priority coming out of the pandemic? 61% said aligning their sales, marketing, and CS teams. 94% actually went on to say that if they increased the priority they put on alignment, they would be able to deliver a better experience for their leads and clients as they continuously grow the business. So it's pretty clear alignment is important. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of feel silly saying that in this room. I think all of us would agree that alignment is important. I feel like I'm preaching to the enablement choir in a way. The question today for this room isn't, is alignment important? It's more how. How can we create alignment to ensure enablement can work effectively? Now, this is much tougher, and honestly, I've probably tried hundreds of tactics over the years, most of which did not work. But as I promised, I'm here to share my mistakes with all of you. We tried things like over-communication, continuously sending out Slack messages, emails, making sure people at least saw our updates. We started meeting with our leaders on a bi-weekly basis, making sure they were up to date as well. We went as far as adapting a magic 7 rule, which was basically the assumption we had to tell people something 7 times before we actually considered that they would actually know it. Not only did this waste a ton of people's time, this did not work. We tried to increase our tech stack. We all know how unbelievably beneficial tools can be, technology can be, especially when looking at things like alignment. However, we quickly realized that seeing that RevOps works across sales, marketing, and CS, all of which that usually utilize completely different technology, introducing yet another tool into the tech stack, just a lost cause. We tried to improve, and to be honest, we overused our data. We all, we started sending our RevOps leaders full data sets illustrating all the different ways we were experiencing misalignment. However, we realized that our leaders either tended to be too busy, maybe just not too interested, in reviewing these reports that we had worked really hard to put together. And finally, we tried to further develop our training resources and manuals. We created like a ton of Confluence pages and other forms of content that people could read or even at times watch that would help them get up to date in regards to our changing processes. We quickly found out that there is a big difference between reading and watching content versus learning and understanding content. My point is, out of the hundreds of things we all have probably tried over the last couple of years, achieving alignment across multiple teams is not easy and never will be. In fact, according to the Pedowitz Group, only 29% of companies have reported that as of today, they are fully aligned with their sales, marketing, and CS teams. Meaning 7 out of 10 of us in this room are still struggling with this. So, if you're one of those 7, what are some things that you guys can try to hopefully improve your overall alignment? Well, first, I think it's important that we break this down into 3 categories of alignment. Across your company, across your team, and with you and your leaders. I have come to realize that we can work as hard as we want on improving or implementing new processes, resources, tools. However, if we don't have the right structure in place, we will continuously struggle to achieve alignment with our sales, marketing, and CS teams. Therefore, the first thing we need to do is we need to look at whether or not we have a structure in place that allows alignment. We need structural alignment. Now, once we have the right structure in place, we have to take a closer look at our RevOps team. They should be working together as a team, not individuals. All projects having all functions operating on them simultaneously. We need team synergy. And finally, when looking at bettering our alignment with our leaders, we need to remember that we are enablers. And I'll get to what I mean by that in a couple of slides. So let's first take a closer look at what I mean by structural alignment. I'm going to assume several people in this room are already familiar with the siloed versus RevOps models. However, if you aren't, quick course. In 2017, Mark Savick introduced this logic of the silo, that people had to get away from the siloed model. Essentially, at the time, most revenue teams were set up in this way. And basically, the siloed mentality was the hesitancy for people to share information with other employees of different departments across the same company. So basically, each team was led by a different individual. The VP of sales, the VP of marketing, the VP of success, all of whom were responsible for sharing some information with each other. However, usually that information was only shared across the VPs. It was very general and never really trickled down to the other people on the team. Now, within this structure, each department also had their form of operations, such as sales operations, marketing operations. Now, they were responsible for only issues that impacted their team. Therefore, they were working separately. Now, this dynamic came from the idea that different departments address different issues across a company. Therefore, they don't really need to share information or cross-collaborate. In hindsight, this was not ideal. It led to a lot of inefficiencies, headaches, as a result of miscommunication around information, data, tools, and processes. I'll give you an example. So years ago, I was working for this one company that we had missed our sales targets a couple quarters in a row. Our sales and enablement team became quite frustrated. It doesn't feel good not delivering on those targets. However, during those same quarters, our marketing team seemed to be celebrating, saying they had accomplished everything they had hoped. They had hit all their targets. Funny how that works. Looking back, this was simply because I was working for a company that was set up in this siloed model. Basically, the sales enablement team were focused on developing a process where we could create as much pipeline as possible, dollars. However, our marketing leaders, they didn't care about how many dollars were we creating for our pipe. They had put all their targets around MQLs. Resonating with some of you? So right from the beginning, we had completely misaligned goals. They were celebrating if 10 MQLs came in, even if we didn't generate any revenue from them. Looking back, if we had aligned our marketing and sales teams from the very beginning, that clear gap in process would have been avoided. So if you're sitting there looking at this slide, I feel like I keep getting really loud in this mic. Sorry about that. If you're sitting there looking at this slide, thinking your company is kind of set up in this way or a similar way, it is of my opinion that alignment will continue to be a struggle for you and your team. So, what can you do about that? Well, your company should be trying to move away from the siloed mentality and incorporate this type of RevOps structure. With this structure, RevOps becomes not only responsible for the overall buyer's journey, but also responsible for aligning your sales, marketing, and CS's diverse objectives, priorities, processes, to ensure they're all strategically contributing to the overall organization. Essentially, RevOps becomes the captains of the ship or the conductors of the orchestra, whatever analogy you prefer. RevOps can be broken down into multiple functions. I know some people break it down into things like strategy, workflow, process, data, analysis, tech, whatever. I prefer the four: the enablement team, the operations team, the insights team, and the tools team. As everyone knows, the enablement team is responsible for eliminating the frictions across all departments to ensure everyone can work more effectively. The insights team is responsible for providing that hard data required to making sound decisions. The operations team is responsible for automating, improving our overall collaboration between departments. And our tools team basically is responsible for our overall revenue tech stack. So I must admit, when I came across Mark Savik's article, I became obsessed with this model. I truly believe that switching to a RevOps model rather than a silo would fix all issues of alignment across our company. But as I said, I'm the guy that makes a lot of mistakes. Add this one to the list. What ended up happening was, although we did get a lot better at figuring out solutions that worked across sales, marketing, and CS, our RevOps team began to be pulled in so many different directions, they stopped communicating with each other. So I had solved this one issue of alignment across our company, but created this whole new silo across each function within RevOps. It's not easy. After sharing my frustration with some other leaders, I quickly realized that RevOps cannot function like other teams within revenue. For example, an AE. An AE has one responsibility: to sell as much product as possible. That responsibility starts and stops with them. It's a very siloed position. RevOps cannot work like that. RevOps is a team sport. We need to make sure we're working together at all times. We need team synergy. So my team went off and tried to develop team synergy. We started making sure every project we worked on had all RevOps members involved. Meaning, even if it was an enablement initiative, the operations team, the tools team, the insights team, were all consulted, first off to ensure we weren't missing anything, but also to ensure we all stayed aligned and were aware of all the different initiatives we were working on. Now, as you can imagine, creating team synergy in a work-from-home world is not easy. So we probably did what many of you have done, setting a bunch of meetings, Zoom meetings, so we could share ideas, tagging each other in Slack messages, forwarding emails, cross-collaborating over SharePoint documents. However, to be honest, achieving team synergy in a work-from-home world continued to be a struggle. However, the true game changer for us, what it really allowed our enablement team to work efficiently and align with the rest of our RevOps team, was when we implemented a project management software like Asana or Monday.com. Now, I know a couple of us have already said we're using Asana, but this makes sense, right? And some of you are already doing this, but it took me a while to figure out that RevOps is a project-led team. Therefore, we need project management software. You see, based on my experience, I feel like RevOps never really utilizes their own day-to-day technology because we're usually so embedded with things like the CRM or the LMS that we never really prioritize ourselves. However, this became a no-brainer. We already knew how to use project management software because we were responsible for implementing it and supporting it for the marketing team. So we also jumped on it and gave it a shot. And honestly, having the ability to create projects and share responsibilities for any and all tasks across RevOps without actually having to set a meeting to chat about it, not only allowed our team to align better with each other, but also allowed our RevOps leaders to review our initiatives on their own time, making it much easier for us to align with them as well. Honestly, implementing Asana was monumental in regards to our team being able to create team synergy. And talking this long is tough. Give me a sec. All right. So now we've created the structure that will help us align better with our overall company. We've created this much-needed team synergy, which should help us align across our RevOps team. The last thing we need to do is we need to find a way to better align with our leaders. And honestly, for me, that's probably the simplest of the three, because all we have to do is we have to remember we are enablers. So what do I mean by that? Well, as I said earlier, alignment tends to be an enablement responsibility. I would argue that everyone in this room has been responsible for alignment for years. Every single one of you can be standing up here right now sharing the tactics that you've learned over the years because you guys are the experts. We can't forget that. Therefore, if you're struggling to achieve alignment between your enablement team and your RevOps leaders, use the exact same tactics that we've been leveraging for years across our other teams. So for example, streamline your processes. Create new ways for your RevOps leader to make decisions quicker and more efficiently. One way we can do that, like we just talked about, project management software. Make sure you're always staying business outcomes focused. When presenting your initiatives to your RevOps leader, always make sure that you're working on ways to show how it's going to have an impact on the overall company, not just an impact on an individual or team. Use data, but also trust your gut. As your team works towards developing team synergy, your enablement team will start working much closer with your insights team, allowing you to see trends much sooner. Do not discount that advantage. Colin Powell had this great methodology around the 40-70 rule. Basically, he argued that we should never take action on something until we have at least 40% of the data to support our argument. However, if we wait until we have 100% of the data, which happens much too often in this data age we're in, oftentimes that's much too late. The window of opportunity exists when we have 40 to 70% of the data. Therefore, make sure you're using your data, but also trust your gut. We also have to remember the KISS rule. Now, I know this is a bit cliche, but we do have to keep it super simple. I don't think I've ever met someone in enablement that hasn't had ridiculously high ambitions. We do have to remember that Rome wasn't built in a day. If you are hoping for RevOps leader or other leader buy-in, make sure you're keeping your initiatives simple. One way I do that is I stick to my 1%. Who here has read Atomic Habits? James Clear? Pretty trendy book. All right. So in this book, James talks about his 1% theory, which is basically when people try to get better at something, they think of the end goal, which may seem super unattainable, difficult to achieve. James argues that if we just think about getting better 1% day over day, we will end up 37 to 38 times better by the end of the year. Sales initiatives work the exact same way. If you're trying to get better, make sure you're setting initiatives, make sure you're taking your business outcomes, figuring out what you're hoping to accomplish over that year, and figure out the associated 1% to that outcome. Bring the 1% forward for your RevOps approval. And lastly, probably the toughest one, stay determined, but be patient. I know it's super frustrating when we have to explain something over again or reiterate why an enablement-led initiative is so important. However, going into those conversations, knowing this may be something you have to mention again, maybe talk about across a couple different communication channels, may not make the process more efficient, but will help lower overall frustrations for you and your team, which does go a long way. So I know I've talked a lot over the last 20, 25 minutes or so, but I did want to conclude by reminding everyone that 7 out of 10 of us are still are working for companies that are still trying to figure out alignment. Meaning, despite all of my mistakes, structural alignment, RevOps synergy, and sticking to my basic enablement tactics are what has worked for me. However, that may not work for everyone. So if you're in this 70%, go out and make your own mistakes. You know, Henry Ford once said, the only real mistake is the one in which you can learn nothing from. So get out there, make mistakes, learn from them, and try again. And if you do ever want someone to bounce ideas off, please feel free to reach out to me via LinkedIn or email. I'm always happy to have those conversations. Should also mention, for those 30% of companies that are fully aligned right now, First off, I'm very sorry for wasting the last 30 minutes of your time. But also, I'd love to see how you've been able to achieve alignment and learn from your mistakes as well. So with that, I guess I'll turn it back to the SCC. Thanks. All right, thank you.